Hi, I'm Nicole from CreativeLast.com, and today we're going to do a paint along and make this pumpkin. So let's get painting. I am going to provide a list of all the supplies that you need in the description below. So for the pumpkin, I used Fabriano, which is a very good paper for beginners. But for a student grade, I was able to get these results. So it's not going to break the bank, and I actually really like this paper. It's 25% cotton, but it is sized nicely, and the water behaves really well on this paper, so give it a try. All you need is 3 brushes to do this painting. An 8 round, a 3/4 flat, and a detail brush is all that you need. I suggest some warm primaries, the yellow, and I do have a Pyrrole orange, and I have Quin red and Van Dyke brown. Let's get started. So the first thing that I want you to do is either sketch out the pumpkin yourself on a piece of 9x12 water paper, or whichever size you'd like to use, or you could also download the sketch that I provided. Now we're going to drop in color with our lightest colors. I'm starting with my lightest colors, working from the core out. You also want to paint the curvature of the pumpkin. As you see, I'm starting to add in my oranges. And you just continue to spread the paint around. I'm using nice, smooth, long strokes. Going over to that right side to add the darker lines and the texture in the pumpkin. This is still a very light color. There's a lot of light on that side. My paper's still damp there because I could see the sheen on it, but it is drying, and I'm going around again to add some darker midtones, trying to establish the darker areas and start to shape the pumpkin so that it looks more three-dimensional. So I have mostly a probably milk consistency orange. And I used a little bit of the Van Dyke brown for the shadowed rib area on the right-hand side. Lightly applying the orange over the yellow, so that we could still see our bottom layer in some areas. That is the coolest thing about watercolor, is all these translucent layers creates a luminescence effect on these bottom layers that shine through. You could already see with the darker midtones that I've put in, it is starting to get a more three-dimensional look. Now, looking at the reference photo, I'm lifting up paint, okay, because there's some lighter areas in there. Lifting paint again. There's a high contrast in this part of the pumpkin, so I'm deepening the colors here. Following the contours of the pumpkin. Looking back and forth at the reference photo, I'm just darkening areas that I think need it and shaping the pumpkin, adding texture. Just going over that line with a wet brush to smooth out that line. Working with the contours of the pumpkin and painting in the direction where it curves really helps to bring out that 3-dimension. So if we keep going over and over the same areas as we work around this pumpkin, the paper should stay fairly wet. And as we get back to the beginning, I'm just picking up some darker oranges and the reds and trying to build up our layers now and get into a little bit of a darker color, going around once more before we let it dry. And I'm defining the ribbed part of the pumpkin, following my lines from the previous layer. We are working wet on dry now. Grabbing more of that nice bright orange. We're working at one section at a time. I'm starting to drop in some red tones. There's a shadow, harsh shadow here, so I have some Quin red. I'm trying to get a nice smooth line here. I'm going through and darkening up the areas I need to and adding another coat for vibrancy and dimension. This area is quite dark. I'm adding some Quin red to deepen the grooves. I'm going through now and working on these small details. Keep referring back to my reference photo. Putting in that extra pumpkin in the background. Now I'm taking just a wet, damp brush and lifting up the highlights. So this is when the curvature of the pumpkin is really going to come through. Last little touches to help with that three-dimensional shape. You could lift up using your 8-inch round brush. I just happen to have this chisel brush that is one of my favorite scrub brushes that I'm using. But a round brush will work as well. My 8-inch round brush is Black Velvet Silver Series, and it has a very, very fine point. So I started working the detailed areas with this brush. want to follow the contours of the pumpkin when you do the shadow. So I'm basically using it like a pencil and sketching in. Kind of lost my pencil lines for the shadow, so I'm just keep referring back to my reference photo and keep working at it until I'm happy with it. Continue to follow the contour of your lines in order to get a realistic shadow. Notice I'm not painting just straight across. I'm trying to stay within those dips and valleys. I'm actually darkening the valleys there. If you were to zoom in on the reference photo, those areas are darker. For the stem itself, I just added some various brown, the Van Dyke brown that I had, mixed with some of the yellow and the orange. I've taken a really good, thick, kind of cream consistency mixture of, I think, the Pyrrole orange along with some of the Quin red to really deepen that shadow color. Now I'm working with the detail brush and adding a lot of little scratches and nicks and just a lot of texture, a lot of dry brushing. Going even deeper with some darker shadows under the stem. Basically, just keep playing with it until you're happy with the results. Now I'm just adding a little bit of white wash. And thank you for your patience. This is my very first paint-along YouTube video, and I have learned a lot and hope to be able to keep bringing you new videos and improve upon them. Thanks a lot, guys. This is Nicole from creativelast.com.